Hey, welcome back. I guess it was kept going. All right. Very good. All right. Sorry about that. I can't tell whether the stream is going or not. So I had stopped the stream. I had a little technical difficulties. I wasn't getting any audio out of this mic. I was playing around last night, as I already explained, episode 140 of Tuesdays with Perry, and we were having some difficulties through the Meet software we were using. And so through all the finagling through that technical snafu, that kind of carried on into today. So sorry about that. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Some difficulties through the Meet software we were using. Yep. So it continues. All right, so I just explained big ceasefire in Iran. I've been blocked several times, and my episodes being blocked on several different channels. I had to switch browsers for a couple things. So a lot of upheaval, not just in the world, but on this channel. It might have something to do with, in fact, the headline here, which is Iran war ceasefire ruse. And did Donald Trump threaten a nuclear strike or those of other weapons of mass destruction? Hard to say. We're going to dissect all that right now. And I got to take my car in at 11:30, so we got to make this quick. It is just 10 o'clock now. I was trying to get on a little bit early for that fact. We got 40 headlines to go through and really break down what's happening in the world today. You can join me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live stream here on Rumble, YouTube, BitChute.x, Facebook as well. Let's get into the headlines here for today, April 8th. We're going to start with zero hedge here. U.S., Iran, Israel agree to 2-week ceasefire. Tehran will allow safe passage via Hormuz for 2 weeks. And we got some points here. President Trump agrees to a 2-week ceasefire in Iran, conditional on them agreeing to complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran accepts Pakistan's 2-week ceasefire proposal with the deal approved by the new supreme leader. Iran also says safe passage via Hormuz possible for 2 weeks. Story goes on to say, building on the conservations leaked all day, it appears that Donald Trump has withdrawn his threat to end Iranian civilization as we know it. And that kind of brings us to the point here. What exactly was that threat? Now it's sort of come into view here. There's been a lot of speculating with our adversaries, with our allies, et cetera, people within the United States, Congress members, et cetera, et cetera. What did it mean? Was it conventional bombing? He said he was going to knock out the electricity? I think that's what he meant. You know, electricity is a symbol of civilization, right? Plumbing, also indoor plumbing. So I think he's kind of like alluding to the fact that through conventional bombing, he's going to take out the electricity, and that would kind of put them back into the Stone Age, so to speak. But was there something more sinister going on there? There might have been. Was he threatening a tactical nuclear strike? Or some other, he was hinting towards secret weapons that have not yet been displayed or on display. Based on conversation with Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif, and Field Marshal Azmin Munar of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off on the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump says, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This is what I'm talking about. It seems that he was threatening much more than a conventional bombing of just the electrical grid. We'll see. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with the definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East, he says. We received a 10-point plan from Iran, proposal from Iran, and believe it's a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all the various points of contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. And then Fox News has the headline, Trump pauses Iran strikes for 2 weeks to negotiate 10-point peace deal. President Donald Trump has set an 8 p.m. deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or else the U.S. will begin targeting the nation's power plants and bridges Tuesday. Iran has rejected proposals, but put forward by the U.S., and Trump in turn shut down a 10-point plan from Tehran on Monday, saying it wasn't good enough. So Tehran did agree at the coming of the B-52 bombers. Now, B-52 bombers have been employed in Iran already so far for some time, but apparently the payload on these B-52 bombers was different. Getting back to the Fox News story, what to know, President Donald Trump gave Iran until 8 p.m. That was yesterday. Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif played a critical role in brokering the extension. Fuel prices are surging worldwide in the Iran blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. However, this is old news already, because it was posted this morning, but only at 6 a.m. The United Nations warned that Trump's threat to target Iran's power plants and bridges could constitute war crimes. Associated Press, U.S. and Iran agree to a 2-week ceasefire. New York Post, Iran threatens to destroy ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz despite ceasefire pact. What is this? Iran's battered navy has reportedly warned foreign ships on Wednesday that if they will be destroyed if they attempt to cross the Strait of Hormuz without permission from Tehran. You must receive permission from the Iranian Sepah Navy for passing through the strait. If any vessel tries to transit without permission, you will be destroyed. And an Iranian official was heard saying in the audio shared with the Wall Street Journal. The threat comes despite President Trump announcing late Tuesday that Iran agreed to the complete, immediate, safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, where over a fifth of the world's seaborne oil flows through annually. What's happening here? Well, apparently, the agreement stipulates that Iran and Oman, both those countries whose territorial waters encompass the strait. So the agreement said that Iran could charge fees for traversing the strait. So that's why they're still threatening violence on the ships if they don't have permission. And apparently they could charge tolls as well. Part of the agreement. Associated Press, attacks reported in Iran and Gulf nations hours after ceasefire announcement. But then here's what I was just talking about. The plan also includes allowing both Iran and Oman to charge fees on ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. A regional official said Wednesday on a condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. The strait is in territorial waters of both Oman and Iran. The world is considered the passage of international waterway and never have paid tolls before. And that's the point. And that's what we should insist militarily. That's just for me. It's always been considered, so it's never been disputed, and now Iran is disputing it, so that's one of the contentions. Is Trump going to give Iran rights to impose tolls? That's something to fight over, for sure. The New York Post, Trump announces huge tariffs on countries supplying Iran with weapons. Yeah, China. Because here's the scenario. All right. Before we go any further, I just want to give my quick take on the ceasefire. Iran is a bunch of liars, and they're a bunch of liars, obfuscators, tricksters, and generally not to be trusted. So I don't believe Iran is going to live up to the deal, because the sticking point is the nuclear material. if we don't seize that or begin seizing it within the next 2 weeks, all bets are off. All bets are off because this is just another way for them to stall. And in the meantime, receive armaments, more sophisticated armaments, specifically from China, anti-ship missiles, and Russia, presumably, via the sea. This is a very sticky situation. I don't think we should have agreed, but I think it's time. It's obviously time. But Trump should already be expecting them to violate both in these areas, both in terms of shipping from other countries with weapons and not giving up their uranium and still attacking their neighbors and shipping with missiles. Huffington Post, Trump says U.S. will work with Iran to dig up and remove enriched uranium, and that should happen immediately. But also, as I just stated, a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed, and any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There will be no exclusions or exemptions, and that's the important part. This is a war. This is fifth generational warfare on China, and we've been at war at China since the Korean War, really. With that armistice in Korea, and Korea is a client state of China. We're going to get to that in just a second. I say in a week's time, we should not continue with the ceasefire. I think we should show we're interested, but I think we should give it up and press China more. And that's just me. Look, I'm not for war, and I know Perry brought up a good point last night. He goes, you don't have to keep saying it. We're not all for war. But the point is, I would just want to preface what I'm saying is not an advocacy. It's just if I were in a tactical position to make decisions, that's what I'd do. I'd give a window of stop the bombing for a window, but not long enough for them to rearm, certainly with specifically sophisticated anti-ship missiles, the Y-19 and the Y-20 that have over 1,200 mile range, up to 2,000, which would put our fleet in the Arabian Sea at risk. All right, back to the news. Story number 8. Russia, China reject resolution to reopen Strait of Hormuz as Iran's ambassador warns of retaliation against U.S. for egregious war crimes. So if anybody didn't know, there was a UN resolution before the deadline. I think it was on Saturday or Friday. And China, with veto power, and Russia, both have veto power, rejected the resolution, voted against opening the Strait of Hormuz. So they agreed with Iran having the right to close an international shipping lane because they're in a military conflict as a result of their unwillingness to bend to global community pressure, pressure from the U.S., pressure from Israel. Can't forget Israel. The National Security Council this was way back on Tuesday, rejected a resolution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping as the U.S. prepares to begin bombing Iran's electrical grid and other civilian infrastructure for keeping the waterway closed to oil imports. There was 11 votes in favor, 2 voted against, and 2 abstentions, and it was Russia and China both voted against it. That was more important than anything that's happening in Iran or in the Gulf right now. All right. One of the signals Iran was ready to make a deal was this. This also got lost in the shuffle in the ether yesterday. Thank you, CIA, for losing this article. It went into the ether for a day. BBC U.S. journalist Shelley Kittleson released after kidnapped in Iraq. Officials say, who was she kidnapped by? She was kidnapped by Shia militia for Iran, as used as a bargaining chip. So also that happened yesterday. And that was very important aspect too. So you have the UN, you have the BRICS nations firmly standing beside their ally Iran in a UN vote. I mean, the vote is fairly symbolic, who knows? But the resolution can't pass because they're permanent members. And also Shelley Kittleson being released, which means Iran is willing to bargain. They're getting hit hard. China and Russia did not come out in defense of Iran, and that was the key thing there. New York Post, story number 10, Trump declares Iran ceasefire deal could lead to golden age of the Middle East, boasts big money will be made. This is just Trump being Trump. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. Arabs, not all, some Arabs still wipe their ass with their hands. Just a joke. He said the same thing about Gaza. Who knows? The point is, Trump, this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. Because Iran is not going to capitulate in any way, shape, or form. I don't believe. If they do, more power to you. I think that's wonderful. But I think Trump is too proudful. President Trump expressed optimism Wednesday that the Iran war ceasefire agreement will usher in a golden age in the Middle East, a big day for world peace, he said. Trump wrote on Truth Social, Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Likewise, so has everyone else. The commander-in-chief said that the U.S. will be helping the traffic build up in the Strait of Hormuz, whatever that means, and loading up with supplies of all kinds, just hanging around in order to make sure that everything goes well. Is he going to put the U.S. Navy in the Persian Gulf? No, don't do it, Trump. I wouldn't put that much faith in the Iranian government. All it takes is one battleship, one U.S. military ship going to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. We're going to have problems. There will be a lot of positive action, big money to be made. Iran could start the reconstruction process just like we are experiencing in the U.S. This could be a golden age of the Middle East. Trump branded Operation Epic Fury, total and complete victory. So did Hegseth, by the way. More than a month after the first U.S. strikes in a joint operation alongside Israel forces on the 28th. Trump didn't rule out strikes on power plants if ceasefire collapsed. All right. And this is the part I want to get to right now is what's really going to happen. We hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I think Iran will violate. I think Russia has already attempted and China are both going to try to take this 2-week period to smuggle in more sophisticated weapons to fight the West. And I think we're still in spiral territory. And I think Trump's conventional bombing could very well be something worse. And that's what we're hearing. And that's what made the Axis powers, I guess you could say, our adversaries, spooked. And they all of a sudden went into serious nuclear posture. Some good news, Market Watch, crude oil is down below 192.79, and that was at 8 o'clock. I'm not sure what it is now. Also, New York Post, story number 12, Strait of Hormuz to reopen after Trump announced 2-week double-sided ceasefire hours before Iran deadline. We know what's happening here. Iran launches Iran launches missiles at Israel U.S. installation amid ceasefire announcement. This is kind of important. Just after the United States announced a ceasefire with the Iranian regime, that regime launched ballistic missiles at civilian targets in Israel. Another missile salvo reportedly targeted a U.S. base or a diplomatic installation in Iraq, though that strike might have occurred just before the ceasefire. And what we know here also is that this is always common occurrence. Right before a ceasefire, both sides try to hit themselves as hard as they could, except Israel actually didn't do that this time, which was surprising. All right, zero hedge. Russia ferries 175 nuclear scientists out of Iran via land border with Armenia. Now, this headline has been changed to because it said nuclear scientists before, and now it says Russian nuclear scientists out of Iran via land border with Armenia. Russia announced that it had successfully evacuated the last main group of Russian workers from Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant, which has been hit several times by U.S.-Israeli strikes throughout the over 1 month war. The problem is here, they said it's the nuclear power plant has been hit by strikes. Now, what does that mean? Well, if they were bombed, the reactors were bombed, right? No. The facility was bombed, but not the reactor. So we don't have a leaky nuclear site there. New York Post, Vance calls ceasefire a fragile truce with Trump impatient to end the war. I agree with Vance. I think Vance is a lot more pragmatic than Trump. I think he'd make a good president. Glenn Youngkin is in the mix now, too, so we have to think about that. One American News, House Democrat moves to impeach Hegseth over Iran conflict. This is just ridiculous. Representative Yasmin Anazari, is she Persian? Has announced that she will introduce articles of impeachment against Secretary of War Pete Hegseth due to concerns of his handling of the U.S. operation in Iran. Ansari, who was born to Iranian parents, there you go, said in a statement she'll be continued to introduce articles of impeachment against Hegseth. Well, he's the Secretary of War. He can't prosecute war? Of course he can. And the U.S. doesn't restrain itself militarily. Just so you know. You can't impeach the Secretary of War for prosecuting a war. So it figures she's Iranian. Zero Hedge has the headline, 800 ships trapped in the Persian Gulf are scrambling to figure out if they can leave. The truth from this article is apparently shipping companies just can't put it in gear and start sailing away. Plus, they all have to get permission from the Iranian government. Salon actually has the article, Trump revealed his objective in Iran 40 years ago, take the oil. And they refer to that Barbara Walters interview that I had played some excerpts from. And yeah, so what Salon doesn't say in its article, though, is that he said Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And that's basically what we're talking about. If that's your objective, realistically, geopolitically, one of these days we're going to have to go in. So BJ Media, Democrats called Trump crazy, then he got a ceasefire deal with Iran. You know, he talked about a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back, and I think that was a veiled threat. For using, I just think it was a threat, though. Well, why would we show our hand? If conventional bombing, they think it's going to be worse. That's supposedly going to be a secret weapon, so. And that's when they started calling for a 25th Amendment. And the National Review says Trump's Iran rhetoric is not a war crime. Of course it isn't. I mean, I just think he's doing what the PSYOP community is telling him to do. Say this. The whole thing, in intelligence is to produce ambiguity. So that's what you want to do. You don't want your adversary to know you're going to do this or that. Federalist Trump's hyperbolic annihilationist rhetoric comes with a moral cost. I guess you could say the ceasefire with Iran doesn't vindicate Trump's morally questionable threat to wipe out an entire civilization off the map. He was speaking of, as in the civilized world, if you remove someone's water supply and their electricity, they're back in the Stone Age. That's considered uncivilized. The trying to trying to make that sort of connection between that and, you know, Holocaust or genocide. Also, it was a psyop. They're trying to scare the Iranians. What was very sad to me, for me to see Axios, and speaking of intelligence operations, Axios is reporting MAGA's media great unraveling, and it has pictures of Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Walsh and some other guy. What was this about really? This is about Mediaite joined in my chorus from yesterday that said Alex Jones calls for Trump's removal. How do we 25th Amendment his ass? And he was on there with his buddy there, the lawyer, who always blanks. It always blanks when I talk about that. Barnes. Steve Barnes, the lawyer, and I like both of those guys, but literally parroting Democrat talking points. Can you just not do that? You can criticize Trump all you want, but he must have got the memo. All right, just the news. GOP candidate Clay Fuller, Trump's pick, wins Marjorie Taylor Greene's House seat in Georgia special election. Thank God. Federalist, Virginia Democrats' power grab is a giant middle finger to rural Americans. It is, because Democrats often claim that they want to win over rural voters, yet when it comes to hiding their scorn for them, they're hopelessly incontinent. Oh, without a doubt. It was a CIA bait and switch with Spamberger came in there campaigning as a moderate, which appealed to the Blue Dog Democrats. But then they voted for her. What did they get? Far left-wing progressiveness. Fox News' Glenn Youngkin accuses Governor Spamberger of illegal and unconstitutional gerrymandering in Virginia map fight. Former Virginia governor says Democrat successor is trying to undo his legacy. Oh, without a doubt. Oh, come on. Former Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin accused the state's sitting governor, Abigail Spamberger, of illegal and unconstitutional gerrymandering push, which Virginians will vote on. I hope they vote it down. But in any case, the important thing about here is because he's coming out publicly, he's throwing his hat in the ring for 2028. I thank God that he's going to do this. I think he's going to be a great alternative to J.D. Vance. Not that I don't like J.D. Vance, but it's better to have a pool to choose from. Just in case, at the last minute, something happens with JD, we have somebody else. Federalist again, Spamberger's efforts to deny voters representation make her least popular recent Virginia governor. Like I said, it was the bait and switch, and now Virginians, even some Democrat Virginians, are saying no bueno with the CIA agent. Virginia voters seem to be recoiling from Spamberger as her moderate promises deteriorate into racial reality. Radical reality. Excuse me. Radical reality. Radical and racial. Post-millennial press secretary for Newsom's controller admits in undercover recording that fraud is everywhere in California. This is from the O'Keefe Media Group. Bismarck Obando, the press secretary for the state controller, Malia Cohen, said that there was fraud everywhere in the state. Of course they know it. That's what Democrats do. A new undercover video released by the O'Keefe Media Group on Tuesday showed the press secretary of California State Controller saying that audits are not getting done because, well, why do you think? Because the Democrats don't. It's a giveaway. So if you let people cheat, it's a giveaway. It's just like actually writing them a check legally. Also illegally, as we saw with Acorn, they allow people to skim the system or break the law or whatever to try to make money. And they do it under the name of compassion. Speaking of fake compassion, National Review, big city mayors are increasingly community organizers, of course. Who do they talk about? Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Zoran Mamdani of New York, and Karen Bass. Oh, are those our three biggest cities? Led by socialist organizers. Hello? Hello? Just the news, story number 30. Senator Johnson, that's Ron Johnson, says staff untangling Biden cover up of COVID vax injuries across millions of files. Republican chairman of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation says his staff is combing through nearly 1 million pages of documents to unmask the full extent of Biden's administration's cover up of COVID-19 vaccine side effects to maximize shots in the arms, of course. We're going to dig, but I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of what they covered up, says Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. The exact nature of the mRNA vaccines is only one of the things they lied to us about, of course. I can't bring myself to call them vaccines anymore because the mRNA technology turned your cell into manufacturing site for the most toxic part of the coronavirus and sent those spike proteins throughout the body, literally creating havoc. Literally creating havoc. This is no surprise to everyone, except maybe my brother, who's a friggin' idiot. Nobody knows. And this is this is what I do every day. Corroborate things within the news to try to prove out some facts. Lesser truths. Just the news at CPAC, over 90% supported Trump tariffs, of course. If you understand where China plays in all of this, you'll understand what's happening. It's like when he says countries are ripping us off, imagine him saying China and other countries are ripping us off. New York Times Justice Department Civil Rights Division is investigating star witness against Trump. I don't want to go too much into that. That's the Cassidy Hutchinson story. She lied. She was actually paid to lie. So of course it should be investigated without a doubt. National Review, first step toward shrinking the government. They are less than 2% of people employed work for the federal government. That is the lowest share since before World War II. Smart. If you're conservative, you like that. I don't like the spending, but the majority of people working shouldn't, work for the government. Fox News, ICE arrests 13 after tip on truck drivers at Pennsylvania DMV sparks chaotic scene. The Butler area firefighter Zach Schurer, who was at the 2024 Trump rally, filmed the scene and called the DHS to report it. And what was he reporting? It was a chaotic scene at PennDOT Licensing Center where more than a dozen illegal immigrants were ultimately arrested for trying to get their commercial driver's licenses. It went as far as even people exiting their vehicles and abandoning them on the street to run away. NBC News, ICE involved in shooting in North Carolina. The Stanislaus Sheriff Office said it was aware of the incident between San Jose and Modesto. What did I say? Carolina? I meant California. So we all know about this. So that's all NBC says. A person was shot. A person was shot. But just a person. ICE is just shooting random people. No. ICE spokesperson Todd Lyons has identified the man as Carlos Ivan Mendoza Hernandez, an alleged gang member from El Salvador, and has said the shooting took place after a targeted vehicle stop. And they stand in front of the vehicle to keep the guy from driving away, and he tries to drive away. That's lethal force. One American News, ICE Boston, ERO arrests 5 criminal aliens with Interpol red notices, foreign fugitives wanted for murder and homicide. I'm not going to get into this whole article because kind of running out of time here. But the enforcement and removal operations, Boston executed a series of arrests involving 5 illegal aliens wanted for murder or homicide in their respective home countries. These individuals, some of whom were subjects of active Interpol red notices, highlighting a significant challenge facing federal law enforcement. The reality of foreign fugitives successfully embedding themselves within U.S. communities. That's all you have to know. New York Post, wild video shows fireball consume Panama Canal bridges of the Americas, killing one. Here's a picture. Everyone was suspecting the apocalyptic footage shows the moment a fuel tanker exploded under a bridge near the Panama Canal. But people were suspecting, like what happened on the Maryland bridge there, that, or is it Delaware? Maryland, that this was done intentionally to blow up a bridge, that it was a covert operation by China. Could have been. It doesn't look like it. It seems like an accident, but if someone has more information, put it in the comments. Fox News, North Korea fires missiles towards sea after ridiculing South's hope for better ties. South Korea's military tracked several missiles launched after North Korea dismissed calls to restore diplomatic dialogue. Wow. Well, that's, they fire missiles all the time, but that should be noted because of when it happened. During the pause, the war in Iran. And the Telegraph here has the headline, story number 39, China restricts airspace for 40 days in signal of intense military activity. 5 zones stretching 340 miles from the Yellow Sea to the Shanghai blocked without explanation. I think they're beginning their smuggling. I think that's the idea, to get a smuggling package to Iran. And the distraction was Korea firing its missiles. And the last story today, story number 40, which I think is of interest. Fox News, ancient monastery from earliest centuries of Christianity unearthed at desert site. Mud brick complex in Wadi al-Natrun included monk cells, wall paintings, and skeletal remains. The reasons this is important, if you're a Christian, is you have to understand the history of Coptic Christianity compared to Roman Catholicism and its Lutheran offshoots, etc., Protestant offshoots. Just, if you're a Christian, just look at the Coptic Church, particularly Tawahedo in Ethiopia. But I'm just going to leave it there. I think it's important. If you're religious, if you're not religious, who cares, right? You can be spiritual, not know history or about religion. All right, thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Has it only been an hour? I whipped through those pretty nicely. Yep, less than 45 minutes. So 40 stories in 45 minutes. I probably should do that more often. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget, you're under attack psychologically and biologically. Stay hip to the trick. I live stream every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, X, Facebook. You can also join me on other social media, Getter, Minds, Substack. All right. I will see you tomorrow. Friday's a big day. I just want to urge you also to check out episode 140 of Tuesdays with Perry. We went live last night, 9:15, and talked about the ceasefire and what it means, what's likely to happen, et cetera, et cetera. All right. I appreciate you. Respect.
Bitch! Google me! You might want to look me up sometime, Barbara!